Good morning. My name is Barbara Hawk, and I'm a member of the 2013 Centennial Committee for the Borough of Laurel Springs. Thank you very much for coming.
Quite welcome.
Today we have the privilege of interviewing Cora Barbara Smith, who will be telling us about her life in Laurel Springs. So could you please start by telling us when you were born and where you were born?
I was born in Laurel Springs, 611 Laurel Road, in the house that my grandfather gave to my grandmother, to my mother and grandfather as a wedding gift. And that was my mother's mother, of course. And he was Ephraim Tomlinson of the house down the road. And he gave the house as a wedding gift, and her family gave the furniture to furnish the house. And they lived in New York. I was born to Cora Walker and Jeffrey Walker, and the same house I was just talking about. And it was at the time of the World War, First World War, when he was going to be sent overseas. But I was born just before he had to leave. By the time he got home, I was almost a year old.
Oh, man.
So it was the first I remember of anything is taking walks with my grandfather, Walker. And he used to come over from Haddonfield. And I guess they had a trolley line or something, because I'm sure he didn't walk that distance. But he used to take me walks, and I would pick dandelions and give them to him, which he was very happy to have. Mm-hmm. And I was about 2 years old at that time. But I do remember that. And when I went to school, I started school and I was 6 years old. Like, I didn't have kindergarten in those days. And I remember my first grade teacher was Miss Boland. And I was in first grade 2 years because I was sick a lot. I had a lot of colds and things, and so I didn't get to school that much. So I had to repeat the first grade, which was put me back a year. And then when my brother went with me, he was 2 years younger than me. And when he entered first grade, I had to take him to school. Of course, I was older than he, so I had to sort of watch over him. But every trash can he came to, he wanted to stop and get the electrical bulbs and things, because he loved working with electricity. And when he was only 6, he even rigged up a doorbell in our front door, and it worked, just from stuff he used to get from the people's trash cans. But it didn't. I know that his first grade teacher, Miss Bowen, was still teaching at that time. She wasn't too happy about it because he didn't like to put all this stuff under his desk. He liked it on top. But he died before he got out of first grade.
Oh.
Just about 8 then.
And what did he die from?
He had died of diabetes.
Diabetes. Oh.
And his grandfather had it, so it ran in the family.
Mm-hmm. And what part of the service was your dad in?
He was in the infantry.
Okay.
And nothing special, but he did his service duty over there and came back around when I was about a year old. And Mother said when the armistice was signed, I was still pretty young, so they took me around town in my coach with flags all around it. Oh. And everybody was very nice to us, and liked to see the babies, of course. But that was before my father had come home.
Oh, okay.
So after that, I remember going to school, walking most of the time, because the roads weren't that great in those days. They were mostly cinder and gravel. And my father used to wonder why I wore up my shoes so fast. But that was the reason. And I remember the bank being built.
Oh, you do?
Laurel Springs National Bank. I remember all this cement and stuff around and walking through it. And those type of things when the town was being built and the sidewalks were put in, and I got my roller skates so I could use the sidewalks. But it was a nice childhood.
Good.
And
like, who were your friends then?
Pardon me?
Who were your friends?
Well, when I went into school, in first graders, none of them are living right now. It was Margaret Cotter and Charlotte Lynch, Alma Dugan, and Eleanor Frederick.
Oh, okay.
And the different ones that I was friendly with. But most of them have gone. And I went into high school when I was, of course, instead of going in when I was only 13, I went in when I was 14 because I was left back in first grade.
And then what high school did you go to?
I went to Haddon Heights High School. And I graduated in 1937. And at that time, I had a part-time job working for the fusee factory. Samuel Jackson had this fusee factory in Laurel Road, Laurel Springs. Oh. And I worked as a secretary for several years. And until I got married, then when my husband-to-be worked there, that's how I met him.
Oh, Jay.
In fact, I wrote the letter to him to say that he was hired. So he had to go into the service too. So after we were married, of course, Jeffrey was born just before Harry got home again. Uh-huh. In fact, he was 8 months old when Harry got home. So it was sort of I guess I became pregnant on our honeymoon. And then Wayne, my second son, followed about a year after. And then I had my daughter was born about 4 or 5 years after but she's not living now. She died in an accident going to work. So I'm still living in the same house that I was born in. And I don't know really.
And do you know any of the businesses that you went to, like the Laurel Springs 5 and 10, or?
Well, there were quite a few businesses in Laurel Springs, around 37, and so they had. Of course, we had the bank, and then we had a movie house. We had a drugstore. A man in the drugstore owned a monkey, which my father traded for a bird dog.
Oh my goodness!
So the monkey lasted just about not quite a year.
And what store was that?
So he got rid of it somehow. But I know it was. Mother said either the monkey goes or she goes, so the monkey went.
And what kind of stores were they?
Pardon?
What kind of stores besides the bank, and then? What kind of stores? The bank, and then...
there was the bank.
And the movie.
There was a dress shop.
Oh, a dress shop. Oh.
Yes, and of course the fusee factory where I first worked. And my father had a service station on Laurel Road, which closed down, I guess, around 37 or 38, sometime in there. I don't know exactly the date. It closed down when the lake, we had a bad hurricane, and the lake went out. The Clementon Lake went first, and then the Laurel Lake, the dam just wouldn't hold the water, and that went out. So that was the cause. That's why he closed the station, because there's no traffic on Laurel Road.
Right.
So.
And did you ever have any air raids? During the war in Laurel Springs, any air raids?
I know we had wardens and things.
Yes.
And we had to put our curtains down during the war and make sure there was no light and things like that.
Right. Uh-huh.
But it really didn't bother us too much. I don't think.
Good.
We just had to do all these things.
And did you attend any of the churches in Laurel Springs? Did you attend any churches in Laurel Springs?
Well, I was in our church. I went to the Episcopal Church. I started that when I was, I guess I was about 16 when I was confirmed. And I was in the mothers group and so forth, all those little circles that they have. Mm-hmm. And but I didn't say that when I went to school, to grammar school, I liked sewing. We had a Mrs. Woodside who was our teacher. And I loved sewing, and I used to win a lot of certificates and things from doing sewing and things, you know, winning prizes and so forth. But I enjoyed that. And then they had to give up the sewing, and also they gave up the boys, what the boys used to do. And, you know,
like woods.
The mechanical.
Mechanical. Oh, okay. Now, what kind of games did you play at school?
Well, I remember playing soccer one time with Mr. Johnson, our teacher, gym teacher. He had us out there playing soccer when it was snowing, so I remember that quite well, because I was very upset about it. But we had fun. And I never really went into sports that much, but I played along with what they had. In high school, I played soccer, and then I got a hurt ankle, so I stopped that for a while. So we had just the usual things, I suppose, nothing outstanding.
No. What kind of games did you play, like after school, like and on weekends?
Well, at home, we had a lot by our house, and the kids from school would all come over to play soccer. So we had quite a soccer team right at home. And I remember there was a boy that they seemed to like quite well. He was very popular, but he went to St. Lawrence. But he used to come and hang out at my father's gas station, and he played soccer with us. So I was quite popular then.
That's really cool.
And I noticed after he had to leave that I didn't have as many girls coming to play
okay.
soccer.
Did you belong to any civic organizations or the fire company auxiliary or anything?
Nothing special, no.
Okay.
I was in the Girl Scouts and stuff like that, but nothing. I didn't go out too much for other things, you know, social things. I was pretty busy at home. Of course, I had to take care of my parents when they got ill, so I was always, you know, with them until they died. But
then your 3 children kept you busy. Your 3 children kept you busy.
Yes, I had the 3 children.
And what do you have any memories of the 4th of July celebration?
Oh yes, we always had a very. All the boys were always in that. Jeffy had one of these little carts that he pushed. He had a pedal, but it was a little cart and then it had a rumble seat in the back where Wayne used to sit. So he'd go through in the parade, but he always won a prize because he was in the only thing that had to be pushed. So he always came home with a prize. And Joyce always decorated her bicycle, and she won too, some things. So they had always a good time in the 4th of July parade. And of course, Halloween was another great event. They always used to go up in the attic and get in the big trunk of clothes that we had up there, left over from some of our ancestors from England came over with so many heavy things, and they couldn't wear them when they got here because it was so hot. And in England, of course, it wasn't that hot. So they had to put all these clothes in this big, it's a big chest my grandfather had made. Oh. We still have it. And they used to dress up in those clothes and things.
Yeah.
So they always had.
And I'm sure you remember the bank being decorated. I'm sure you remember the bank being decorated at Halloween.
Yes, and they had, yes, the bank always took a beating. They got somebody's privy, they found a privy to put in front of it. I know one time they said if it was done once more, they were going to get out of town. So they did get out of town, but I don't know whether that was the reason.
And how about any of the farms around here? Of course, the Tomlinson farm was...
the Tomlinsons had a farm. And
yes.
For a while, that was about the only farm, I guess, around here. And then, of course, they had Johnson's that was in back. That would be in the Stratford section.
Okay.
But it was right next to the Tomlinsons' farm. And the Tomlinson, before I was born, from what my mother tells me, the Tomlinsons had almost a little village of their own there. They had their own. My grandfather built the schoolhouse. It was on top of the hill, and quite a few children attended that. All the workers that had children that worked on the farm, they were sent there. And Miss Becky from Berlin was the teacher, and she taught anywhere from 1st grade to high school. algebra and all the different languages. Mother said she was amazing. But she had all those children, and they got a good education. Of course, when Mother graduated from there, she went to Penn Select. So that was her college. Mm-hmm. And so my brother, her brothers, they went there. But they had their own ice house. They used to get ice from Laurel Lake, and they'd cut it and put it in the place where they kept the ice. And then in between the layers of ice, they'd put hay, which would help to preserve it.
Oh, my goodness.
And it would last all summer. These big chunks of ice that they cut. But it would give them ice all summer from there. And she said it was just amazing how to see these teams of horses in the winter cutting this ice. And to think that would support these teams of horses. That's the kind of winters they had then.
Oh, yeah, severe, right.
So it must have, I'd like to have been there just to see that.
And how about any memories of Laurel Lake? Memories of Laurel Lake?
Oh, yes. We always had fun on Laurel Lake. That's where I learned to swim, and I guess everybody in town did. But it was a nice lake in those days.
Right.
They could fish, they could go boating. And it must have been a very nice place, you know.
Right, yeah. And the ice skating. I know my kids ice skated on Laurel Lake.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It was cool, yes. And how about in any of the hotels that were on Lakeview Avenue?
I don't remember too much about that hotel. I know it was there, but I didn't have too much to do with that.
Okay.
But of course Mother did. She used to talk about it and things. But I just don't remember that hotel. But I do, it was there. I know that. And then I remember the Finks they had where the boathouse used to be in Laurel Lake. They had a little store where they used to charge 10 cents to go swimming from their beach, and they sold ice cream and stuff, and soda drinks, I suppose. But they were there for several years. And
that is cool.
Because we were old people, I suppose, at least old timers, we could go there for free. So we didn't have to pay our 10 cents. So they were there for some time. So that's the same place now where I think the man that does the framing, picture framing, Landsman is his name?
Landsman, yes, Landsman, yeah, he lives there, right, yes.
And
right,
But I remember going down there, but he lived there for quite a few years before
And do you still walk? Do you still walk?
I still walk.
That is wonderful.
I don't walk as far as I did. I used to walk 4 miles around the lake every day. But I've given that up a little bit. I walk around Laurel Springs now.
You do wonderful. You really do wonderful, yes.
Do the best I can.
So do you have anything else? Can you remember? Do you have anything else?
I don't think so, especially
okay.
Can you think of anything, Jeff?
You did very well. And thank you very much for coming.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
We really appreciate it. I'm sorry it took us so long to get you here, yes. Okay.
Thank you.